Mm-hmm.
And it's got this kind of chord progression that's very similar chord progression to the chord progression of Under the Bridge, where it starts on a major chord, but it goes to a minor chord in the course of the chord progression. So it's basically happy, but it's also got this slight sadness that it moves right through. And I think so even though I didn't know exactly what we were going to come up with, like driving there, I remember I specifically thought, do something like Bold as Love, like, because we'd been performing a cover of Castles Made of Sand, which is off that same Jimi Hendrix album, and it worked live. Like our audience liked it, you know.
That's my favorite Jimi Hendrix song.
Right.
I love that song.
So we'd been doing that all through the Mother's Milk tour, and everybody loved it. So I knew we could sound good playing something like that. Yeah. And so I thought, I'll just write something like that. And we figured out how to have the chords and the lyrics and the melody and all work together with that. And there was a Joe Jackson song that I was particularly fond of called In Every Dream Home and Nightmare, where when it gets to the chorus, there's nothing on the one. There's the verse happens and then there's a little drum break, and so the verse ends and then the drums go bam 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 bam. So it's this interesting kind of groove, just where there's nothing on the one and there's a little drum break right before the chorus. So when Anthony and I came up with it, that was what I envisioned in my head was we could do a chorus like that Joe Jackson song. So what I came up with to have a similar kind of drum break after the verse is over, this little breath, and then in our case it went 1, 2, 3, bam, bam, bam. So like the chord was starting at a different time. It's sooner in the bar line, but it was the same basic idea. I played Ryan, our engineer, that song, saying, "This is where I got the idea for Under the Bridge chorus." And the chorus went by him, and he was like, "I don't hear it."
Of course.
Yeah, but conceptually, it was that idea of start later than the one rather than on the one for the chorus.
That's a really interesting point in general, how we can be inspired by a piece of music or a technique in a piece of music and then make something inspired by it, and it's nothing like it.
Yeah.
It's nothing like it. It's just some underlying rhythm or organization or principle that gets you to the next place, but it's not the song at all. It's just a technique.
Yeah. Yeah, we did a lot of that back then. Flea and I were really on a roll with that. What we perceived as we called it ripping something off.
Yeah.
But there isn't one example of that I would just think that I would say comes anywhere near plagiarism. You know, it's
really inspiration. And it's like, oh, we could do something like that. And the context is so different that it has nothing to do with the original. Yeah.
And a lot of the time it might be in the guitar part or the bass part, but then that gets covered up and interacted with by the drums and the guitar or whatever. And you wind up with a completely different texture and a completely different sound and a completely different musical statement, where a lot of musicians I've known have been paranoid about stealing from anybody else. And then for some reason, those same musicians actually have bass lines or guitar parts that are exactly something else.
Direct
rip-offs. Yes. And they didn't know they were doing it, you know? So somehow I feel like by being conscious of it, we were controlling it, you know, and it would be a theoretical idea that we were taking or an idea that has something to do with the relationship of the instruments and it's not actually taking music from somebody else. Yeah.
It's like architecture.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then we finished that album. I remember we had a really good party at that house. It was really fun. It felt like 1,000 people were there. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
That was really good.
Yeah, playing the music everywhere in the house and stuff, and people playing ping pong, and yeah.
And then you went on the road, and then how long was it before it stopped being fun?
Well, we had a pretty big break between, especially because we weren't really involved in the mixing. So as I remember it, from the time I left the recording studio. I think of it as being like a 6-month period or something that we weren't doing anything. It was probably shorter than that, but I seem to remember having a nice long break, you know. And during that time, there's a couple of things that happened to me that I think like switched my mental gears around. Like one was a bad acid trip, like taking acid in the wrong environment and feeling at the time like I was never going to be the same and being stuck in that mindset, and then waking up and feeling like, okay, I'm normal now. I'm not stuck like that. But as the weeks went on, starting to realize, God, I don't think I am the same anymore. And also started, I won't get into too much into the drug thing, but they did seem like pivotal things that took place, that started occasionally using heroin around the same time. And gradually, and you know, as I had already been smoking pot all day long, but it was having a very positive effect, you know, up till then. But especially when that happened with the acid trip, it was just like, I think my brain definitely needed like a clearing, and I didn't allow myself for that. I was so attached to the relationship between pot and my creativity that I couldn't stop doing that. And gradually we went on tour, and gradually that synesthesia that I was talking about, it was gradually getting weaker and weaker. Like there was a distinct feeling of it drifting away, and it was fading, I would guess would be a good way to describe it. And with the limited experience I'd had in my life up till then, it seemed like if I didn't have that, I wasn't going to have creativity. Like I thought that they were the same thing, and I thought if I didn't have that, I'm going to go back to being how I was at mother's milk time or something. And the one activity that I could do that still was producing that phenomenon was drawing and painting. And I guess that had a lot to do with the fact that there was no purpose to it. I wasn't doing it for an audience. I wasn't doing it to be good. I wasn't doing it to impress anybody. I wasn't doing it to make money. So somehow that part of my creativity gradually was the thing that I was clutching to more and more. And music itself was starting to seem more and more meaningless. And I was having a lot of strange experiences where like I couldn't find any CDs or records on the shelves that I wanted to hear. Everyone had some sort of bad connotation